Hi, Facebook Nation. This is Dr. Staci Swim, and I am coming to you live with an interview of Tori Rose, which she is a RN that for 20 plus years and a CRNA for about 14 years. And we are going to talk about the book that she just wrote and published and is available on Amazon right now, Stepping into the Storm by Tori Rose, and her lived experience of the initial days of this pandemic and how it affected her life, her family's life, and her professional career. But I just want to tell you just a little bit about myself, because I was going to do that first, and I got excited and went further than I needed to at the moment. But I'm a nursing educator at this time. I've been an educator for about 15 years, but I've been a nurse for about 34 years. And I am the creator of the Frontline Nurse on Facebook page. And what I am doing with that platform is I am trying to promote the Year of the Nurse 2020 through a commemorative t-shirt that symbolizes, and Tori's got hers on there, I have mine on here. You can see it in the background, but it symbolizes this milestone in our noble profession, that the once in a lifetime Year of the Nurse 2020, and we're in a pandemic at the same time. The biggest challenges we've ever had in this profession is now during the Year of the Nurse. And so the t-shirt commemorates this, and it also, the proceeds help other nurses that have been affected by COVID-19. And that's my initiative and how I can help through this pandemic. And but we'll talk a little bit more about that at the end of the interview. And so now, again, I want to introduce to you Tori Rose, the author of Stepping into the Storm. And my first question I have is, Tori, tell us what led you to write the book. What inspired?
This is totally unprecedented, unlike me. So to tell this answer, we have to go very far back into early 2020, like February 2020. And I would have categorized myself as a non-believer at that time. I was one that thought this is just another flu and this is overblown. I didn't necessarily think hoax like people say, but I definitely was one to try to calm people's nerves and say, look at the death rates, this is going to blow over. This will be fine. And this is before anything hit America. All you knew was China. The word COVID wasn't even around yet. It was just China and coronavirus. So then I'm talking to a good friend of mine who's a primary care physician, probably the end of the first week of March. And we were discussing our perspectives, and I was trying to alleviate her fears. And she said, yeah, but have you read what's really happening in Italy? And so I did. I made the bad decision and Googled Italy coronavirus at 10 at night. And I read something that kind of changed my life. I think it was a tweet from an anesthesiologist functioning as an intensivist in a big city in Italy. And it was chilling and haunting. And it was like not an SOS call, but an SYS call, like save yourselves. This is real. Talking about how the halls were full of patients, every bed, there weren't enough ventilators. They were cutting off who could get intubated. They didn't have resources. She wasn't going home to see her own children, and take this seriously. So my whole body got chills as I read this, and I couldn't sleep for a solid week after that. And I live my life with a very strong Christian faith. And throughout that week, through praying and listening to certain praise and worship music, I felt this calling. And as I was reading about it, I felt a calling too. And this is going to affect me personally. But throughout that next week, I had a few things kind of happen to me spiritually or whatever that are beyond the scope of this. That was the way I would liken it to somebody waiting to be drafted for Vietnam, where you're like, my number is going to be called. I'm supposed to do this. This is part of my fate, and it's going to be okay. I will be protected. So um, then fast forward about a week later, when I actually got the email asking for help. And so it was like, well, this is what I've been waiting for. Time to go. So I went, and I had the most unusual, scary days of my career while I was there. And it was worse than I thought. The overwhelming nature of this behemoth, there was no urology, cardiology, there's nothing but COVID. And it felt like a movie, and it felt like a war zone. It was just like, am I really here? Is this happening? And they were such scary moments, but I never felt overwhelmed there. So I did my shift. I came home and I talked to a few coworkers, and one coworker was like, "You should really document some of this. This is part of our history. This is so unprecedented, and take pictures of yourself in your PPE." And I was kind of like, "Oh," I placated her, like, "Oh, okay, yeah, sure, but that's not really me. I don't read, I don't do that sort of thing." But I go and I work another shift. And as I'm working there, I thought, if people could walk these halls with me and see what I see, they would know this is not a hoax. This is overwhelming, a big system, a big city like Detroit. And people are receiving information from all sorts of media outlets these days. And a lot of times people pick which sources to believe based on what they want to believe. But this is a major piece of the puzzle for people to formulate their thought processes on, how am I going to react to this? And so I just felt like if people could be here with me, they would understand and they would change their practices. And, the media is not allowed in, family members aren't allowed in. It almost felt like, well, I could be a messenger to tell people what it's really like. And if I can change the mind of one or two people exponentially, the level of less people that would become infected because of that could be a big deal. And I just felt like if people could see what I saw, they would understand the reasoning behind all of the restrictions and masking, and we'll get back to normal faster if we flatten the curve, essentially.
I know when I read your book, and I won't give away any of the good stuff, but when I read your book, it's nothing like what we would expect to go into for a shift. It, like, even the normal stuff turned into things that you just don't even know how to deal with.
Yeah, it was so dramatic. Every single moment of my shift felt like, this is nothing I've ever experienced, and it felt cinematic is all I felt like. And I felt like if people could be there with me, not only would they be, enlightened and entertained, but it would just turn the light bulb on.
And Tori, one of the things that really stuck out to me was, I mean, all the stuff in between coming onto your shift and leaving your shift, all of that stuff was really interesting too. But you going on to shift and coming off of shift, the events that took place during those two times of your day,
yeah,
just really resonated in me.
Okay, yeah.
Because we just think about going to work and going home.
Right.
But for you guys that read the book, you're going to see how it isn't just going to work and going home. No. There was so much more to it.
Right. So many unknown things.
Yes. So that really stood out, that, gosh, I just take it for granted that I can just go to work and I can just go home.
Right.
But your description of those two events just really resonated with me. And of course, the rest of it did too. But I'm just thinking about these two simple things that should just be simple.
Yeah.
And there was nothing simple about this at all.
No, sure wasn't. Yeah.
Okay, so tell us, in your book, you talk about different events that happened and different patients that you cared for. Are these real life cases?
Yeah, every clinical scenario described in the book actually happened. The book is written as fiction because I first put it out as nonfiction with everything referencing COVID, and Amazon is, trying to protect or censor or whatever. So I had to change the name of the virus and go with the fiction route just to get it out there. But every clinical scenario actually happened. I changed some patient identifiers and some locations and minor details that wouldn't take away from the actual subject matter, but would, of course, protect privacy of anybody involved. But every emotion, every thought, you're right there with me, this first person reader. I tried to make it as intimate and, you know, um, real as possible. But every single event and conversation actually did take place.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And
That's
that's why I felt like I was talking to my husband after my second shift, and it just hit me like a tidal wave. Like, this is so crazy, so unusual. You're supposed to write about this. And I was like, who, me? Like, I don't do that. But I wrote the book in 3 days. I just had so much to say, and it just came pouring out, and it was all real. So it was easy. I didn't have to be creative.
no, you had everything you needed right
Yeah.
there. Um, how about, you're talking about the initial days of this pandemic. We're 5 or 6 months into it, but
Yeah.
you're talking about the initial time. And during that time, you know, and it's really what I based my design of the shirt, the t-shirt on, is the shortage of the PPE, the protection of um, the frontline workers, the healthcare workers, patients and families. And there, of course, there was that shortage. And I remember hearing people saying, well, we're having to use our PPE over and over and over again, and using it in different rooms. And for those of you, PPE is personal protective equipment, like the masks, the gowns, the gloves. And I think how I tried to symbolize the pandemic with the t-shirt design was the picture of the mask that's tattered and torn and used over and over again. Tell us about what you experienced during that time with personal protective equipment for you, and maybe now that you're back to work in your normal situation, how does it look now compared to then?
Yeah. So early on, you heard all over the media about the shortages, which would be just horrific to be put in that situation. The day that I got the email to go down to help, the first thing I did was I called and I said, what is your PPE situation? Do you have proper fitting N95s? Do you have shields? And they said yes. So that's all I need to know. I'm coming. So I shot over and went and took a leap of faith that they were telling the truth. And so besides getting my scrubs when I got there, the next thing was, okay, where's my N95? Got it. And then, I had plenty of face shields and gowns. And this particular hospital did a phenomenal job of obtaining nurses from all over the country, including myself. I'm not from that area at all. And so I felt like, gosh, this is quite the blessing. We all have what we need. In fact, there's a point in the book where I get that needle stick injury and have to quickly leave because I'm bleeding and I have to get tested. And I haphazardly, not really thinking, kind of not really panic, but out of body experience moment, just kind of discarded my N95 in the heat of the action. And so then later I thought, oh my gosh, what did I just do? But then when I went back on shift after visiting the detour of occupational health, and went to the new unit that we were starting, the first thing I did was survey the unit and saw plenty of N95s and plenty of face shields, the full boot shoe covers, plenty of gowns, plenty of gloves. And, we were sanitizing our gloves, which is new to me. I had never put hand sanitizer on gloves before. And it's what you're supposed to do, and it's normal, and it conserves, and it works. And so I felt really lucky. And in fact, later when I went back for more shifts, they were even handing out some of the N99 masks to the nurses, the ones with the double filters on them. And I didn't take one of those because I was kind of day to day in what I was doing. And I didn't want to take anything away from somebody who was these real heroes who are there, 12-hour shifts, 4 days a week for months at a time. But now back to being, surgeries are rolling out like crazy. We've now started to reprocess these N95s, and you kind of keep a running clock going of this should only be really working for you for about 12 hours. And then you send it down to get reprocessed through either UV light filtration or hydrogen peroxide treatments. And so we're doing our best to conserve, but I've always had access. Of course, I can only speak for my Midwestern area and the small areas that I've seen. And depending on if a hospital or a surgery center decides to test these patients for COVID prior to coming to the facility, then we choose, okay, they have a negative test. Maybe we'll wear, if I'm going to intubate, I'm going to wear my N95 and face shield. And besides that, I described the PAPR, PAPR, the purifying air system that's like, I liken it to an astronaut helmet with a hose that hooks up to you and filters. Every time I've had to intubate throughout this pandemic or seen other people intubate in multiple facilities, been blessed to have that, gold standard PAPR air purifying system there. So I have felt very lucky and hope that continues in this marathon.
And I think that in the book, you stayed at a friend's house.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't remember did you have to quarantine coming off that last shift from your family?
I did. I quarantined for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
This was when all you knew about coronavirus back then was that everybody died that tested positive for it. Now things are different. People are positive. Oh, it's nothing. If you get it, you'll be fine. But back then, the only people you knew of it were the hospitalized, vented ones, other than a few lucky, healthy people that had it, just the way the testing was, versus now. So yes, I didn't see my family for a good 6 weeks, other than my immediate family, my husband and my children. And that was a discussion we had too, because you never know what the right answer is with that. It's personal decisions.
Yeah. So do we have any questions from anyone that's watching us? And okay, so we don't have any questions right now. Just to remember that this is being recorded, so people will be watching it off and on for the next couple weeks. I wanted to actually thank you for sharing your story, for being brave enough to write the book, of someone that doesn't even like to read, and you wrote the book about it. And you can get the book, find the book on Amazon, Stepping Into the Storm by Tori Rose, and her lived experience through this pandemic in the early stages. The other thing is I want to talk just briefly about the T-shirt initiative. This is the front of the T-shirts. See if you can see them. I survived the year of the nurse 2020. And then on the back is the quote from Florence Nightingale, that she said in 1870 that it will take 150 years for the world to see the kind of nursing that I envision. And 150 years makes that year 2020. And that's why this is the year of the nurse. It was declared by Florence Nightingale back in 1870 that 2020 would be the year of the nurse. We'll never see another year of the nurse, at least declared by the mother of conventional nursing. And so knowing that the things that Florence Nightingale were challenged with and the things that we've been challenged with on the year of the nurse 2020, lack of supplies, protection of environment, protection of patients and families, and she was protecting soldiers, but we are dealing with a lot of the same things that she dealt with 150 years ago. And so my theme with this initiative is that if I could sell a T-shirt and those proceeds could go to helping nurses that have been affected by COVID-19. I have to tell you that I struggled internally with myself about how can I help, because I am a nurse, and being a nurse educator, knowing what my students are out there enduring, and how can I help, and should I change, should I go, to the bedside? What should I do? I struggled internally with this for a while, and it was just, God woke me up one night and said, make a T-shirt. And I'm like, for what? And make a T-shirt. And that I finally figured out after processing this whole thing that, okay, I'm gonna make this T-shirt. I don't even have the money to make this T-shirt, but I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna sell them. And the proceeds will then go to help nurses affected by COVID-19 in many ways. Maybe for scholarship, maybe for mental health, maybe for those that have been furloughed and need financial assistance. Make a T-shirt. I've had several people come on to my website and kind of shun me and say, you're just trying to make money off this. Why don't you just give them the T-shirts? And my whole thing is, it's not about the T-shirt. If I could write them a check for hopefully what these T-shirts could sell, because nurses buy stuff like this.
Oh, yeah.
This is a once in a lifetime thing.
Yep.
I could make a difference. I could help. I could pay forward. It isn't about the T-shirts. I would give everyone a T-shirt if it was about the T-shirt.
Right.
But
I found this shirt to be a great conversation starter because I wear it often, and I've had a lot of people question about it. And it's a great way to educate people on it, because I found people are more respectful to not just, hearing my side of the story of how let's just put the masks on, keep things safe sort of thing. I found that people can disagree without being so disagreeable when they have a little more respect. And a shirt like this, when you say, I survived, I was there, it's a great conversation starter, and people tend to be a little bit more respectful.
And it says frontline nurse on it. And what I want people to understand is that I don't care what part of nursing that you're doing, you're on the front line. When I was going through my struggle in, I'm a nurse. I should be at the bedside right now. They need me. I had a nurse manager say to me, you know what, Staci, we need you in the classroom getting these nurses graduated, because there were so many states that school stopped.
Yeah.
And we made a conscious decision, and we just did it. And we got these nurses graduated so that we could go on to help give relief to these nurses that are just so tired.
They are.
That was a breaking point in my thought process is, okay, I'm doing what I should be doing. I truly believe I'm doing what I should be doing, but I want to sell these t-shirts and give to a nonprofit organization that will help me distribute the money wherever it needs to be. So if you're watching tonight, or if any of you have these t-shirts already, please share. It's frontlinenurse.com. You can go on to that website and find the link to buy the t-shirts. They're $19.95. It's a decent price for a t-shirt. And the other thing is that we've gotten, since the very beginning, we started out with just gray, but we've also now have several different colors and some tank tops as well. We had some nurses say, how about some tank tops to wear under our lab jackets, because we get so hot with the gown on, with the mask and everything. So we did the tank tops, we did the t-shirts, and they're just waiting for you to purchase them so that you can help support the profession. If you're not a nurse and you know a nurse, these would be great Christmas gifts. Great retirement gifts, great thank you gifts to mentors, whatever. So, okay, so that's my t-shirts. This is the book for Tori on stepping into the storm. And Tori, unless you have anything else, I think we'll wrap it up.
Well, I do see that there is a question there. Somebody asked if there was any encouraging words I have for the current frontline nurses. And I kind of keep coming back to this in the book of the teamwork, the camaraderie that I had seen throughout my time in Detroit was phenomenal. Everybody working for the same goal. It's one thing to all have a different assignment, but everybody doing the same things for each other. I have never had more of a respect for these people that are doing this as I do now, that keep showing up day in and day out, doing God's work. And the way they're there for dying patients, because their family can't be there with them. I'm just so honored to be an RN alongside of these. And I just pray that they continue to show up and realize at the end of their really hard shifts how important every act of care was, and that if their family members could thank them, that they would, because they're just the epitome of the word hero.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I can't even in my heart thank these nurses that day in and day out take care of these patients enough. And, a lot of those nurses are nurses that I've trained.
Yeah.
Have a personal connection with. So they're all heroes.
Yeah.
Is there any other questions? No? Okay, well, we'll wrap this up. And Tori, thank you for your time, and bless you for your service, and stay safe, my friend.
Thank you so much for having me. You guys take care as well. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.